Hi folks, my name is Raghav. I'm a fourth-year PhD student from Group Lens Research, University of Minnesota. Today I'm going to present my work on exploring the value of personality in predicting rating behaviors, a study of category preferences on movie lens. This work was jointly done with Tien and Joe Konstan, my advisor. So first, we are all assembled here because we love building recommender systems. And more specifically, this session, because you're all interested in users, right? So we are interested in learning about user preferences, and people mostly study their actions, and in a few cases, even demographics. But psychologists have been looking at personality, and it seems pretty rich. So we decided to see what personality has to offer in a system like MovieLens that we might be able to use in order to make better recommendations to the users. So a fundamental research question in this work is, how do we use personality in a recommender system? So much of prior work that characterized personality made use of the Big Five model, or the five-factor model in personality, so we decided to use the same model. This model has been tested to be repeatedly reliable across multiple platforms, cultures, and languages. So we decided to go with this model. And we used MovieLens for our research. Because MovieLens is a movie recommender system, I don't have to introduce to people in this community at least. People come to MovieLens to rate movies and express their preferences through ratings, tagging, and wish listing. So what we decided to do was we administered a survey in order to gather the personality of users. This survey is based on the paper, A Very Brief Measure of Big Five Personality Domains. So this is a 10 questionnaire-based personality survey, which is different from the standard 44 questionnaire-based personality survey, the BFI one. We decided to do this because we administered this at the very beginning, so we didn't want to scare users by presenting 44 questions. So we had data on about 1,000 users who took this survey, and we primarily based this study on 38,000 movies in 17 genres by these users who provided close to 900,000 movie ratings. So in order to make our understanding simpler, we decided to change the original personality scores were collected on a 7-point scale. So we decided to translate that into a binary scale where a score of 2 or below is classified as a low personality type, and a score of 6 or above is a high personality type. For instance, a high openness user has a score of 6 or 7. So that said, our first research question is how consumption varies across categories for various personality types. So before that, what do we mean by consumption? So I would like to take the example of Titanic. In MovieLens, it is classified with the genres drama, romance, and thriller. So we don't really count that this movie is consumed thrice by the user. It's still a single consumption. So we assume that it's consumed as 1/3 under each of these categories. So that brief introduction, I will now present my results. So as you can see, we did this for 17 genres and 5 personality types. So there are a lot of comparisons. So in order to adjust for multiple comparisons, we did Holmes correction. And what you see here is really the more conservative results. And all these are actually results that turned out to be significant after adjusting for p-values. But I'm going to pick a particular cell to interpret what that means. So what this is saying is high conscientiousness users consume 2% more movies compared to low conscientiousness users in the romance category. So to give a clearer picture of what that 2% means, the consumption of movies in the romance category for a user can vary anywhere between 0% to a maximum of 29% of their movies. So somebody could consume 29% of movies at most in the romance category. So a 2% higher consumption would basically mean a shift in the consumption from first quartile to median, or even median to third quartile. So that's actually a good number. Our second question is how the magnitude of ratings varies by personality type. So in order to answer this question, not the best figure in the world, but basically I'm trying to represent a movie as a multidimensional entity. We have movies in each of these genres, 3 rating levels and 2 popularity levels. So we pass these movies to the users, we get their ratings, and we see that the results for agreeableness are shown here. Again, because we have all these categories involved, we had more than 500 comparisons. So the results shown here are for adjusted p-values. So these results show that users in the high agreeableness category for each of these categories rate on an average at least half-star higher compared to low agreeableness users. As an example, I would like to pick this. So high-rated popular children movies, high agreeableness users rate half-star higher than low agreeableness users. So with that, the conclusion is that different personality types rate differently. They even consume different percentage of movies. And so recommenders should even think of including personality information into the systems. Thank you.
So your final takeaway of the personality being useful signal that we should consider including in the recommender. Do you have any data about whether the personality actually gives you any signal that isn't already encoded in the ratings in a way that's picked up by a collaborative filter? Because it could be that it's already a redundant signal that's picked up, say, maybe 5 of our factors in a matrix factorization correlate with big 5, so it doesn't give us any added boost. Do you have any data on how it correlates?
That's a very good question. We haven't done that yet because we intend to collect more data. This was really done on 1,000 users. So we intend to collect more data to see that sort of effect and see how much personality adds value.
I think I noticed that your, it seemed to be self-reported data on personality types.
Right.
And some of the categories seem to be positive and some seem to be more negative. Did you have some concern that people wouldn't be able to or wouldn't or couldn't give kind of an objective analysis of what their personality might be, and then that would influence the outcome of your study?
Interesting. So we deployed this survey in a context where we used this for new users. They were supposed to introduce themselves to the system, because this is a recommender system. So they're supposed to get recommendations from the system. So we expect that they try to make an as accurate a representation of themselves as possible, but there is always a bias.
Hi. So did you do any correlation? Oh, hi, in the back. Any correlation between personality and context of like when the movie was rated?
By context, what do you mean?
Well, what the user was doing at the time of the the consumption.
No, unfortunately, we don't have that context.
So would you be prepared to give us a guess of if you would be able to remove the context, or to account for the context, how much would the personality type affect the ratings in the end?
That's actually interesting, something we might want to consider for future research. Maybe context, yeah, I mean, I can think of context such as maybe watching a movie over a weekend versus watching over the weekdays, or watching with a group of friends versus watching all alone and things like that. So yeah, I think that's an interesting direction for future research.
Hey, Raghav. Great talk, and good idea to do research on this and to first look at how it could influence before you actually start building it into models.
Yeah, thanks.
one thing that I wanted to ask about is, if I recall correctly and if I listened carefully, you said that so you're testing high versus low on these scales, and you were saying like a 6 and a 7 is a high, and then a 1 or a 2 is a low. Is that correct?
Yes.
So can you tell me two things? First of all, how many of the 1,000 users would fall in the high and low categories? Like, is that about 20% of them or 10% of them?
Yes, it's more than 20% actually.
Okay, so that's a decent amount. All right.
Yes.
Because the other question that I had was, because probably still the majority of us will kind of fall in the middle, would it work on a linear scale as well, or only when you look at the very extremes of these scales will it work? So
well, I don't know. It might even work on a linear scale, but in this case, we suspected that, so we really wanted to increase the sensitivity of analysis. That's the reason why we considered multiple categories to see how there are individual differences. So yeah, that's something we should probably even try.
all right, thanks.
Yeah, thanks.